The grand estate of Richard Langston stood aloof atop the rolling hills, a sprawling monument of glass and steel that caught the sunlight like a beacon of fortune. Inside, the silence echoed through vast empty halls, the kind that swallowed footsteps whole and left only the faint hum of isolation in its wake. Richard himself was a figure carved by solitude, a man whose fortune had grown exponentially, but whose heart bore the weight of emptiness. His days were measured by the ticking of expensive clocks and the cold precision of business deals, yet none of it filled the cavernous void within. Despite his immense wealth, Richard lived a life that was paradoxically barren. His mansion, though adorned with the finest furnishings and priceless artifacts, lacked the warmth that comes from human connection. The parties he hosted were grand but hollow, filled with people who smiled through polite conversations but left by nightfall without leaving a trace of genuine companionship. Friends were few, and trust even fewer. In this gilded cage, Richard was a king without a court, surrounded by the trappings of success but imprisoned by loneliness. Among the staff who kept the mansion running was Mariah, a quiet presence who moved through the rooms with a grace that went unnoticed by most. She was the black maid in the household, her role defined by service, but her spirit far beyond the confines of her duties. Mariah's hands were steady and efficient, whether polishing the silver or setting the table, yet beneath her calm demeanor lay a secret, a hidden talent that flickered like a flame waiting to be kindled. Mariah's life was a study in contrasts. Born into modest means, she had learned early the art of invisibility, blending into the background to avoid drawing attention. Her days were filled with chores and obedience, her nights spent dreaming of colors and shapes that danced behind her eyelids. She was an artist, though none in Richard's world would ever suspect as much. Her sketches were tucked away in a worn leather journal, pages filled with vivid strokes that captured emotions she could never voice aloud. The mansion staff often treated Mariah as just a fixture, a necessity rather than a person. Yet, beneath her quiet exterior, she observed everything. The way Richard's eyes betrayed his loneliness despite the forced smiles, the way the walls seemed to close in on him as the nights dragged on endlessly. She saw the man behind the fortune, the human behind the mask of success, and something stirred within her, a desire to reach out, to bridge the distance that money and status had carved between them. Richard, for his part, was unaware of Mariah's inner world. To him, she was just part of the background, another employee carrying out her tasks with dutiful precision. Yet there was something about her, a subtle strength, a steady presence, that he found inexplicably grounding. On mornings when the mansion felt particularly cold, he would catch glimpses of her moving quietly through the rooms, her eyes calm and focused. In those moments, a flicker of curiosity ignited within him, a faint hope that perhaps not all was as empty as it seemed. Life inside the mansion followed a predictable rhythm. Richard's mornings began with slow sips of black coffee as he reviewed reports and emails, his gaze distant and distracted. Mariah would appear, silently clearing the breakfast table or refilling the cups without being asked. The day would stretch ahead, filled with meetings and calls, and then retreat into the quiet of the evening where Richard would wander the halls, lost in thought. Mariah's presence was a quiet anchor in this swirling sea of detachment, though neither fully recognized the significance of the other's company. Yet beneath this routine simmered the potential for something extraordinary. Mariah's hidden talent was a secret waiting for the right moment to emerge, a gift that could shatter the walls of isolation built around Richard's heart. Her art was not just a hobby. It was a voice that longed to be heard, a bridge to a world beyond servitude and loneliness. In her sketches dwelled a vibrant world of emotion and color, waiting for a chance to breathe life into the sterile elegance of the mansion. As the days passed, a subtle shift began to take root. Richard found himself lingering longer in the drawing room, where Mariah's footsteps often echoed. He noticed the way she arranged the flowers, the delicate touch with which she handled the crystal vases. These small acts of care, unnoticed by others, began to soften the edges of his solitude. And Mariah, sensing a quiet openness in Richard that few had ever glimpsed, felt a flicker of courage awakening within her. The mansion, though still vast and grand, began to feel less like a fortress of loneliness and more like a place where connection might one day flourish. The invisible walls that separated master and servant, rich and poor, began to show cracks, fragile but real. In the unspoken moments shared between them, the briefest exchanges of glance, the silent understanding of presence, something new was taking shape, a seed of hope planted in the fertile ground of unexpected friendship. Richard Langston, the lonely millionaire, was on the cusp of a journey he could not yet see. And Mariah, the quiet maid with the hidden gift, was poised to become the catalyst for a transformation neither of them could have imagined. In the heart of the mansion, beneath the veneer of wealth and status, two souls stirred toward a connection that would challenge everything they thought they knew about themselves and each other. The story of Richard and Mariah was just beginning, a tale of unexpected gifts found in the most unlikely places, where true connection transcended social boundaries and shattered the loneliness that had long defined their lives. The stage was set, and the first notes of a new symphony had begun to play, soft and tentative, yet full of promise. Days turned into weeks, and the mansion's silence grew heavier around Richard Langston. Despite the grandeur that surrounded him, a gnawing emptiness consumed his every waking moment. The walls, once gleaming with polished perfection, now seemed to close in like a shrinking cage, reminding him of the futility embedded in his gilded life. No matter how many deals he closed or properties he acquired, the hollow ache inside remained untouched. Richard's mornings grew increasingly bleak. He would sit in his study, staring blankly at spreadsheets and financial reports, the numbers blurring into meaningless patterns. The weight of his solitude pressed down on him, a relentless reminder that wealth could not purchase the one thing he craved most: connection. His carefully constructed facade of control and confidence began to crumble, revealing the vulnerable man beneath. In the evenings, the mansion became a theater of loneliness. Richard would wander aimlessly through the vast halls, the echoes of his footsteps a stark contrast to the lively conversations and laughter he once hoped to have. Invitations to social events piled up unanswered, his reputation as a man of power growing alongside his isolation. The champagne glasses he raised to empty rooms offered no comfort, only a bitter taste that mirrored his internal desolation. Mariah watched these changes with a quiet concern. She noticed how Richard's shoulders slumped more each day, how his eyes lost their spark as the loneliness deepened. To her, he was no longer just the distant millionaire. He was a man trapped by invisible chains, yearning for something beyond riches. Though her position kept her distant, a thread of empathy connected her to his silent suffering. Yet Richard was unaware of the subtle ways Mariah tried to bridge the gap between them. Her presence, once unnoticed, began to hold a gentle steadiness that contrasted with the chaos inside him. She would leave a freshly brewed pot of coffee on his desk, her hand briefly brushing the edge as if to offer a silent reassurance. She arranged books within his reach, choosing titles that spoke of art, philosophy, and stories of human resilience. Small gestures, perhaps insignificant to others, but to Richard, they were like lifelines thrown across a vast ocean. Despite these quiet overtures, Richard's frustration mounted. He grappled with the paradox of his existence, surrounded by luxury, yet starved for meaning. The emptiness gnawed at him like a relentless storm, and in moments of despair, he questioned the very purpose of his fortune. What good was power if it could not shield him from the crushing weight of loneliness? One rainy afternoon, Richard found himself in the drawing room, a space he rarely visited except to escape the confines of his study. The room was filled with muted light, the gray sky casting a somber hue over the polished wood and velvet drapes. Mariah was there, quietly dusting the shelves, her movements deliberate and calm. For the first time in weeks, their eyes met. There was no formality, no pretense, just a brief, unspoken acknowledgement of shared solitude. In that moment, something shifted within Richard. The walls he had built around his heart began to tremble. He felt the stirrings of a forgotten feeling, hope. Though he did not yet know how to reach for it, the presence of another soul, so quietly resolute, sparked a flicker of warmth in the cold expanse of his life. Yet the journey ahead was far from clear. Richard's struggle with his loneliness was a complex battle, one that no amount of money could solve. His frustration was compounded by the invisible barriers of pride and fear, which kept him locked in a cycle of isolation. He wanted to reach out, to break free, but the risk of vulnerability was daunting. Mariah, too, wrestled with her own doubts. She wondered if her small acts of kindness could ever penetrate the fortress of Richard's loneliness. Would he ever see her as more than a servant? Could she find the courage to reveal the hidden depths of her own spirit? Or was she destined to remain invisible, a shadow in the mansion's grand design? The mansion itself seemed to hold its breath, waiting for the moment when these two isolated souls would find a way to connect. The vast rooms, once cold and impersonal, whispered promises of transformation. The silence that had once echoed with despair now contained the possibility of change. As days passed, Richard's internal battle intensified. He found himself caught between the desire to maintain control and the yearning to break free from his self-imposed prison. His frustration was palpable, a tension that rippled beneath his composed exterior. Every glance toward Mariah was laced with unspoken questions, every shared silence a fragile thread of connection. Mariah sensed this turmoil and allowed herself a quiet hope. She understood that the path to healing was not swift or easy, but she believed in the power of small moments to build bridges. Her secret talent, her art, remained locked away, a treasure she hesitated to reveal. Yet, beneath the surface, a growing courage began to take root, a readiness to step beyond the shadows and into the light. The mansion, with its ornate halls and grand facades, became a stage for this unfolding drama. Richard's loneliness was no longer just a personal affliction. It was a silent force shaping every interaction, every glance, every breath. And in the quiet presence of Mariah, a seed of change was planted. This was not a story of sudden miracles or easy fixes. It was a tale of two people grappling with their own fears and frustrations, each yearning for connection, yet held back by invisible walls. It was a story of loneliness and the tentative steps toward hope, where the most profound transformations often begin with the faintest stirrings. In the depths of his solitude, Richard Langston was beginning to confront the harsh truth that wealth could not buy happiness or companionship. And in the gentle gaze of Mariah, the black maid with a hidden world inside her, lay the possibility of a bond that might one day bridge the chasm between their worlds. The days stretched on, heavy with unspoken longing and quiet reflection. But beneath the weight of frustration and isolation, a subtle promise lingered, an uncharted path toward understanding, compassion, and perhaps, one day, genuine connection. Mariah's world was a tapestry woven from contrasts, between the silence of her daily routine and the vibrant chaos of her dreams, between the role she played within the mansion's walls and the artist she nurtured in secret. Her life as a maid was one of invisible labor, marked by careful steps and measured words. But beneath that quiet exterior lay a fierce passion that refused to be extinguished. Her art was her sanctuary, a hidden realm where she poured her soul onto paper, capturing the emotions she could never voice aloud. Born in a small town where opportunities were scarce and expectations rigid, Mariah had discovered her gift early. Drawing became her refuge, a way to make sense of a world that often seemed indifferent to her existence. Yet, societal pressures and the constraints of her position as a servant had forced her to bury her talent deep, keeping it shielded from a world that might never understand or accept it. Her sketches were a secret dialogue with herself, bold strokes that spoke of longing, hope, and defiance. The pages of her worn journal were filled with faces and landscapes drawn from memory and imagination, each one a fragment of her inner life. In the quiet hours after her duties were done, she would retreat to a small, hidden corner of the mansion where the afternoon light filtered softly through a curtained window. There, she allowed herself the luxury of creation, her hands moving swiftly as colors and shapes blossomed beneath her touch. Yet, Mariah's passion for art was tempered by fear. She knew the rigid boundaries that separated her from the world of privilege and influence occupied by Richard Langston. The mansion's grandeur was a constant reminder of the social chasm between them, a divide that seemed insurmountable. To reveal her talent would be to expose herself to judgment, ridicule, or dismissal. So, she kept her gift locked away, a treasure hidden beneath layers of silence. Despite these barriers, Mariah's eyes often lingered on Richard in moments of quiet observation. She saw beyond the millionaire's exterior, the loneliness etched into the lines of his face, the weight of expectations he carried alone. In her heart, she felt a quiet kinship, a shared isolation born not of circumstance but of unspoken yearning. It was this empathy that kindled a growing courage within her, a tentative hope that perhaps, one day, she might bridge the gap between their worlds. The mansion, with all its opulence, was both a prison and a stage. Its walls bore witness to countless interactions marked by formality and distance, yet within these confines, Mariah's spirit quietly rebelled. She found subtle ways to assert her presence, arranging flowers with care, choosing books for Richard's study that spoke of creativity and resilience, leaving small notes of encouragement tucked discreetly in unexpected places. These acts were her way of reaching out, of injecting warmth into a world that often felt cold and indifferent. Richard, absorbed in his own struggles, began to notice these gestures, though he could not yet decipher their source or meaning. The carefully placed books and the delicate arrangements of flowers stirred something within him, a faint glimmer of connection that flickered amid the shadows of his loneliness. He found himself drawn, inexplicably, to the quiet corners where Mariah moved, sensing a calm presence that contrasted with the chaos of his thoughts. For Mariah, the internal conflict deepened. She longed to share her art, to reveal the colors and stories that lived within her, yet the fear of rejection held her back. The walls of the mansion mirrored the walls she had built around herself, protecting her secret but also isolating her from the possibility of recognition and acceptance. Each day, the tension between desire and restraint grew, a silent battle waged in the depths of her soul. Her backstory unfolded like a whispered confession in the spaces between her daily tasks. The daughter of a mother who had worked tirelessly to provide for their family, Mariah had been raised with lessons of humility and perseverance. Her grandmother, a woman of quiet strength, had taught her the power of resilience and the importance of holding onto one's dreams, even when the world seemed determined to crush them. These teachings were the foundation upon which Mariah's courage was built, a fragile yet unyielding hope that one day, her talent might find its voice. As the days passed, Mariah's decision to remain silent about her art began to feel like a burden too heavy to bear. The mansion, once a place of routine and order, now felt like a cage, each polished surface reflecting the limits imposed on her. She found herself yearning for a moment of truth, a chance to step beyond the shadows and show Richard, and perhaps the world, the depths of her spirit. This internal struggle did not go unnoticed. Richard, increasingly attuned to the subtle rhythms of the household, sensed a complexity beneath Mariah's composed exterior. There were moments, fleeting and fragile, when her eyes revealed a spark of something more profound, a glimpse of the hidden life she carried within. These moments stirred in him a quiet fascination, a growing awareness that the woman who moved so gracefully through his mansion was far more than he had ever imagined. The tension between Mariah's hidden talent and the constraints of her role set the stage for a turning point. The mansion, with its grandeur and formality, was about to witness a quiet upheaval, an emergence of creativity and courage that would challenge the rigid boundaries of class and expectation. Mariah's story, long confined to the margins, was poised to intersect with Richard's in a way that neither could yet foresee. In the stillness of the mansion's drawing room, where light and shadow played across the walls, Mariah's dreams began to stir with renewed urgency. The sketches in her journal called to her, each stroke a plea for recognition, each color a testament to her yearning. The artist within her was awakening, ready to step from the shadows and claim her place, not just as a maid, but as a creator, a force of beauty and truth. Richard, meanwhile, remained caught between his loneliness and the faint promise of change. The discovery of Mariah's secret world would soon become a catalyst, a bridge that might finally span the divide between their lives. But for now, both were suspended in a delicate balance, two souls navigating the complexities of fear and hope, silence and expression, isolation and connection. The mansion held its breath, waiting for the moment when Mariah's hidden talent would burst forth, illuminating the darkness with the vibrant colors of possibility. And as that moment approached, the boundaries of their worlds began to blur, setting the stage for a transformation that would challenge everything they thought they knew about themselves and each other. The quiet tension that had long defined the mansion's atmosphere began to shift the day Mariah made her choice. For weeks, she had wrestled with a growing impulse, a desire to break free from the silence that had kept her hidden, to reveal the colors and stories that lived within her secret sketches. Each time she glimpsed Richard's weary eyes or noticed the subtle ways he sought comfort in the small kindnesses she offered, her resolve strengthened. She realized that if this vast, lonely house was ever to feel like a home, she would have to step beyond the shadows. The moment came unexpectedly. Richard had retreated to the drawing room after a particularly grueling day, his thoughts clouded with frustration and fatigue. Mariah, carrying a tray of tea, hesitated at the doorway, her fingers tightening around the handle. For a heartbeat, the world held its breath. Then, with a quiet determination, she stepped forward and placed the tray on the table, the soft clink of porcelain breaking the silence. Richard looked up, surprised to find Mariah lingering nearby. There was a new light in her eyes, an urgency tempered by vulnerability, that caught his attention. Without a word, she reached into her apron pocket and produced the worn leather journal she had guarded so carefully. The edges were frayed, the cover softened by countless hours of use. Yet within those pages lay a world Richard had never imagined. "May I show you something?" Mariah's voice was steady but gentle, a fragile bridge extending between them. Richard nodded, curiosity flickering to life amid his exhaustion. Mariah opened the journal, revealing a series of sketches so vivid and alive that they seemed to pulse with emotion. Faces captured in mid-expression, landscapes painted with bold strokes of color, scenes that spoke of hope, longing, and resilience. The artistry was raw yet profound, a testament to a talent that had been hidden away for too long. As Richard turned the pages, a transformation began. The loneliness that had weighed so heavily on him softened, replaced by a growing sense of wonder and admiration. Here was something real, something pure, an expression of the human spirit that transcended wealth and status. Mariah's art was a revelation, a glimpse into a world where barriers dissolved and connection blossomed. For Mariah, the act of revealing her talent was both terrifying and liberating. Years of silence and suppression gave way to a moment of courage that felt like stepping into the light for the first time. She watched Richard's face closely, searching for signs of rejection or disbelief, but found only genuine appreciation and surprise. "This is remarkable," Richard said quietly, his voice tinged with awe. "I had no idea." Mariah smiled, a flicker of relief warming her features. "I've kept it hidden for so long. I wasn't sure anyone would understand." Richard closed the journal gently, his eyes meeting hers with newfound respect. "I want to understand. Tell me about these pieces. What inspired you? What they mean to you?" In that moment, the rigid roles that had defined their relationship began to dissolve. Mariah stepped out of the shadows not as a maid, but as an artist and storyteller, inviting Richard into her world. And Richard, for the first time in a long while, allowed himself to be vulnerable, to listen, to learn, to connect. Their conversations unfolded like a delicate dance, weaving together the threads of their lives and dreams. Mariah spoke of her childhood, the struggles and sacrifices that shaped her, and the solace she found in art. Richard shared fragments of his own loneliness, the pressures of wealth and expectation that had left him isolated. Through this exchange, a bridge was built, one grounded not in social status, but in shared humanity. The decision to reveal her talent marked a turning point for Mariah. No longer confined to the margins, she embraced the possibility of recognition and acceptance. The mansion, once a symbol of separation, began to feel more like a place of possibility. And Richard, touched by her courage and creativity, found himself inspired to look beyond his own walls of isolation. Yet, this emergence was not without its challenges. Mariah grappled with lingering doubts. Would this revelation change how she was seen by others in the household? Would Richard's admiration translate into genuine support, or fade like a passing fancy? The stakes were high, but the act of sharing her art was a declaration of self-worth, a refusal to remain invisible. Richard, too, faced an internal reckoning. His preconceived notions about class and talent were challenged by Mariah's gift. He began to question the rigid structures that had shaped his life and relationships. The walls of loneliness that had seemed unbreakable now showed cracks, illuminated by the light of Mariah's creativity and courage. Their bond deepened as Richard took active steps to nurture Mariah's talent. He arranged for art supplies to be brought to the mansion, encouraging her to create openly. He spent evenings discussing artistic techniques and ideas, eager to learn and support. The mansion's atmosphere transformed, infused with the energy of possibility and growth. Mariah's decision to reveal her art also sparked subtle shifts among the other staff. Whispers of admiration circulated, and a newfound respect for Mariah's abilities emerged. The rigid social boundaries within the household began to soften, hinting at a broader transformation that would challenge long-standing hierarchies. As the days unfolded, the relationship between Richard and Mariah evolved from employer and employee to something more profound, a genuine companionship rooted in mutual respect and admiration. Their shared journey illuminated the power of vulnerability and the courage required to break free from societal expectations. The mansion, once a place of isolation and separation, became a crucible for change. Mariah's artistic awakening ignited a spark that promised to reshape not only her life, but the lives of those around her. And Richard, inspired by her courage, found himself on a path toward healing and connection he had long thought impossible. In the quiet moments shared between them, amidst the backdrop of opulence and silence, a new narrative began to unfold, one where talent was recognized regardless of origin, where barriers were dismantled by understanding, and where the lonely millionaire and the hidden artist began to rewrite their stories together. The journey was just beginning, but the choice to reveal her talent had set Mariah and Richard on a course that would challenge their worlds and change them forever. As the days unfolded within the walls of the Langston estate, Mariah's art began to breathe anew, no longer confined to the hidden pages of her worn journal, but spilling into the light of day. Encouraged by Richard's genuine interest and unwavering support, she found herself immersed in a creative fervor that transformed the quiet corners of the mansion into her personal studio. Brushes and paints replaced dust cloths and trays, and the scent of turpentine mingled with polished wood, signaling a new chapter in both their lives. Richard, once a man shackled by loneliness and routine, became an eager student and devoted patron of Mariah's burgeoning talent. Evenings that had previously been filled with solitude and silence were now alive with conversation and collaboration. They would sit together in the drawing room, surrounded by canvases in various stages of completion, discussing techniques, colors, and the stories behind each piece. Richard's eyes, once dulled by isolation, sparkled with fascination and newfound purpose. Mariah's artistic process was a window into her soul. She poured into her paintings the emotions she had long suppressed: hope, resilience, and a quiet defiance against the limitations imposed upon her. Each brushstroke was a declaration of identity, a vivid expression of the dreams and struggles that shaped her. Richard watched in awe as her work evolved, the raw energy of her talent tempered by deliberate refinement. Their bond deepened beyond the conventional boundaries of employer and employee. Richard's respect for Mariah grew into genuine admiration, and Mariah, in turn, found in Richard a confidant who valued her not just for her service, but for the richness of her inner world. This mutual recognition forged a connection rooted in trust and vulnerability, a rare sanctuary within the rigid social structures that had long defined their lives. The mansion itself seemed to respond to this transformation. The once sterile and impersonal spaces took on a warmth and vitality as Mariah's art adorned the walls. Her paintings brought color and life to the grand rooms, inviting guests and staff alike to see the estate through a new lens. The presence of her work challenged the unspoken hierarchies, subtly shifting perceptions and opening hearts. As Richard organized a small, informal exhibition within the mansion, the event became a milestone for both of them. Invitations were sent to a select group of close acquaintances and trusted friends, carefully curated to create an intimate atmosphere. The guests arrived with curiosity, unaware that the evening would unveil a remarkable talent hidden in plain sight. Mariah's paintings, displayed with grace and confidence, captivated the attendees. The vibrancy of her colors and the depth of emotion captured in each piece resonated deeply, eliciting admiration and praise. Whispered conversations replaced the usual formalities, and a new narrative began to take shape, one that celebrated talent beyond social strata and recognized the transformative power of art. Richard watched with quiet pride as Mariah engaged with the guests, her poise and passion shining through. The walls that had previously separated them seemed to dissolve completely, replaced by a shared sense of triumph and possibility. The exhibition was not just a showcase of artistic skill, it was a testament to courage, resilience, and the breaking of long-standing barriers. Yet beneath the surface, both Richard and Mariah grappled with the complexities this newfound attention brought. For Mariah, the exposure was exhilarating but fraught with vulnerability. The fear of judgment and rejection lingered, a shadow that tempered her joy. She questioned whether her talent would be embraced beyond the walls of the mansion or dismissed as a novelty. Richard, too, faced his own internal challenges. The success of the exhibition forced him to confront his preconceived notions about class, privilege, and the meaning of true connection. He realized that his support for Mariah was not merely an act of patronage, but a profound shift in his understanding of the world and his place within it. Their growing bond became a source of strength as they navigated these uncertainties together. Late-night conversations turned to plans for Mariah's future, including opportunities to showcase her work beyond the estate. Richard pledged to use his influence to open doors that had long been closed to her, determined to champion her talent with the same fervor he once reserved for business deals. Within the staff quarters, the ripple effects of Mariah's emergence were palpable. Fellow employees who had once seen her merely as a maid now regarded her with respect and curiosity. Some quietly sought inspiration from her courage, while others grappled with their own aspirations and limitations. The mansion's social fabric began to fray and reweave, threads of old hierarchies giving way to new patterns of possibility. Mariah's artistic expression became a beacon not only for herself, but for those around her. Her journey illuminated the power of hidden talents and the importance of recognition and validation. The narrative of the lonely millionaire and the hidden artist was evolving into a shared story of empowerment, resilience, and the transformative impact of genuine human connection. As the mansion settled into the rhythms of this new chapter, Richard and Mariah continued to explore the depths of their relationship. Their companionship was no longer defined by employer and employee, but by mutual respect, shared dreams, and a commitment to breaking free from the confines of societal expectations. Together, they envisioned a future where creativity and connection transcended boundaries. The foundation of their partnership was built on the fragile yet unshakable ground of trust. Each brushstroke, each conversation, each moment of vulnerability brought them closer to a shared understanding, a recognition that true richness lay not in wealth or status, but in the courage to embrace one's authentic self and the bonds forged through empathy and support. In the quiet aftermath of the exhibition, as the mansion's lights dimmed and the guests departed, Richard and Mariah sat together amidst the canvases and paintbrushes, their hearts aligned in a silent promise. The journey ahead was uncertain, filled with challenges and opportunities alike, but they faced it with a newfound sense of hope and determination. The story that had begun with loneliness and hidden talents was now blossoming into a narrative of transformation and possibility. Through art and companionship, Richard and Mariah were rewriting the script of their lives, proving that connection and creativity could break even the most entrenched barriers. And as the mansion embraced this new dawn, it became a testament to the power of courage, recognition, and the enduring human spirit. The night of the private exhibition arrived with a quiet buzz of anticipation rippling through the Langston estate. The grand mansion, usually a symbol of distant opulence and reserved formality, had transformed into a vibrant gallery alive with color and emotion. Soft lighting bathed Mariah's paintings, each canvas telling a story that transcended the walls of the drawing room, inviting the carefully chosen guests into a world both personal and profound. Richard, dressed impeccably yet with a newfound ease, moved among the assembled crowd, his pride in Mariah's work unmistakable. The guests, a mix of influential figures from the art world and Richard's social circle, were drawn not only to the vivid imagery, but to the story behind the talent. A story that challenged their assumptions and stirred their curiosity. For many, this was an unexpected glimpse into a world they had overlooked, a reminder that brilliance often lies hidden beneath the surface. Mariah, standing quietly near her paintings, felt a mixture of exhilaration and nerves. The once invisible artist was now center stage, her work exposed to scrutiny and admiration alike. She held her head high, yet beneath the calm exterior, her heart raced with the weight of vulnerability. Each compliment was a balm, each lingering glance a validation of years spent in silence. The evening unfolded with an energy that was both electric and intimate. Conversations sparked around the themes of resilience and creativity, the guests captivated by the depth and emotion captured in Mariah's brushstrokes. Questions were asked, stories shared, and connections made. The exhibition was more than a display. It was a bridge between worlds, a challenge to the rigid boundaries of class and expectation. Yet, amid the celebration, tension simmered beneath the surface. Not all were pleased by the disruption of the status quo. A socialite named Evelyn, a woman accustomed to wielding influence with sharp words and subtle maneuvering, watched the proceedings with thinly veiled disdain. To her, Mariah's rise threatened the carefully curated social order, and she was determined to preserve the familiar hierarchy. Evelyn's presence was a reminder that acceptance was not guaranteed. Her whispered criticisms and pointed remarks cast a shadow over the evening, planting seeds of doubt in the minds of some guests. She questioned the authenticity of Mariah's talent, insinuating that the exhibition was a mere novelty enabled by Richard's wealth rather than a genuine artistic achievement. Richard sensed the undercurrent of hostility and resolved to confront it head-on. He approached Evelyn with calm confidence, his voice steady as he defended Mariah's work and character. "Mariah's art speaks for itself," he said firmly. "Her talent is undeniable, and her courage to share it with us all deserves respect." The exchange was subtle but significant, a public stance that challenged the whispered resistance. Evelyn, taken aback by Richard's unwavering support, retreated into silence, her influence diminished by his conviction. The guests, witnessing this moment, began to rally around Mariah and Richard, their admiration deepening in the face of adversity. For Mariah, the confrontation was both daunting and empowering. She realized that success brought not only recognition but also challenges to her identity and place in the world. Yet, buoyed by Richard's advocacy and the genuine appreciation of many guests, she found strength to stand firm. Her art was not merely a pastime. It was her voice, her story, and she was determined to be heard. The evening culminated in a toast led by Richard, who spoke passionately about the transformative power of art and the importance of breaking down barriers. He praised Mariah's talent and resilience, acknowledging the journey that had brought them to this moment. The guests raised their glasses in a gesture of support, the clinking of crystal a chorus of affirmation. As the crowd began to disperse, conversations lingered on the impact of the exhibition. Invitations to galleries and art circles were extended, and whispers of future collaborations filled the air. Mariah's world was expanding rapidly, propelled by the success of the event and the connections forged that night. In the quiet that followed, Richard and Mariah shared a moment of reflection. The gravity of the night's achievements settled between them, a mix of relief, pride, and anticipation. They knew the road ahead would be fraught with obstacles, but the seeds of change had been sown. Yet, beneath the surface, both were acutely aware that this triumph was but a single step. The societal and personal challenges they faced were formidable, and the resilience required to continue would be tested again. The exhibition had opened doors, but it also illuminated the walls that still needed to be dismantled. In the days that followed, the mansion buzzed with renewed energy. Mariah's paintings found new homes beyond the estate, and her name began to circulate in artistic circles once close to her. Richard's trust in her talent deepened, and he became a steadfast champion, leveraging his influence to create opportunities and advocate for her vision. The social dynamics within the household also shifted subtly. Staff members who had once viewed Mariah with casual indifference now regarded her with respect and admiration. The boundaries between servant and master blurred, replaced by a shared sense of possibility and change. Yet, the shadow of Evelyn's opposition lingered, a reminder that not all battles had been won. Richard and Mariah prepared to face future challenges together, united by their shared commitment to breaking barriers and redefining expectations. The private exhibition was a turning point, a beacon illuminating the path forward. It revealed the power of courage, talent, and unwavering support to challenge prejudice and transform lives. For Richard and Mariah, it was a testament to the strength found in vulnerability and the profound impact of recognizing the extraordinary in the unexpected. As the mansion settled into a new rhythm, the story of two unlikely companions continued to unfold, a narrative of resilience, artistry, and the enduring pursuit of connection beyond the constraints of class and convention. The success of the private exhibition marked a pivotal moment in Mariah's life, a breakthrough that catapulted her from obscurity into a world brimming with promise and opportunity. Invitations to galleries and art circles began to arrive, each one a testament to the recognition her talent deserved. The once hidden artist now found herself at the center of conversations that extended far beyond the walls of the Langston estate, her work celebrated and sought after by those who had once dismissed her. Richard watched this transformation with a mixture of pride and wonder. The lonely millionaire, who had once wandered the mansion's halls burdened by isolation, now stood as a steadfast patron and friend to Mariah. His support was unwavering, fueled not only by admiration for her artistry, but by a deeper understanding of the barriers she had overcome. Together, they navigated the complexities of newfound fame, their partnership evolving into a powerful alliance grounded in mutual respect and shared purpose. The days following the exhibition were a whirlwind of activity. Mariah attended meetings with gallery owners and curators, each encounter a step closer to establishing her place in the art world. Richard used his influence to open doors previously closed to her, advocating on her behalf with a determination that surprised even himself. Their collaboration was seamless, his resources and connections complementing her creative vision and passion. Amid this surge of success, Mariah remained grounded by the memory of her humble beginnings and the lessons instilled by her grandmother. She approached each opportunity with humility and resolve, aware that the path ahead was as much about perseverance as it was talent. Her art continued to evolve, reflecting the complexities of her journey and the richness of her experiences. Within the mansion, the atmosphere shifted palpably. Mariah's emergence as a recognized artist challenged long-standing social dynamics, prompting a re-evaluation of roles and relationships. Staff members who had once regarded her with casual indifference now looked to her with admiration, inspired by her courage and achievements. The mansion's hierarchy began to blur, replaced by a sense of community and shared aspiration. Richard, too, experienced a profound transformation. His engagement with Mariah's world expanded his perspective, revealing the limitations of his previous worldview. The loneliness that had plagued him softened as he invested himself in supporting Mariah's dreams and embracing the possibilities that their partnership offered. He found purpose not in wealth alone, but in the connections forged through empathy and collaboration. The success of Mariah's exhibition also ignited conversations beyond the mansion's walls. Influential figures in the art community praised her work, and critics lauded the emotional depth and authenticity captured in her paintings. Her story resonated as a testament to the power of hidden talent and the importance of breaking down barriers to opportunity. However, the path was not without challenges. Mariah faced skepticism from some quarters, where her background was scrutinized and her achievements questioned. Yet, bolstered by Richard's unwavering support and the growing appreciation of her art, she confronted these obstacles with grace and determination. Each challenge only strengthened her resolve to prove that talent and passion transcend social boundaries. As Mariah's career flourished, so too did the bond between her and Richard. Their relationship deepened into a genuine friendship and partnership, built on trust and shared experiences. They spent evenings discussing future projects, envisioning ways to use art as a means of empowerment and social change. Richard's role evolved from patron to collaborator, his influence wielded with a new sense of purpose. Inspired by Mariah's journey, Richard proposed the idea of establishing a foundation dedicated to supporting undiscovered talents from marginalized communities. The vision was ambitious, a platform that would provide resources, mentorship, and exposure to artists whose voices had long been silenced. Mariah embraced the idea wholeheartedly, seeing it as a way to give back and create opportunities for others like herself. Together, they began laying the groundwork for the foundation, leveraging Richard's network and Mariah's artistic insights. The project galvanized their shared commitment to breaking down barriers and fostering inclusivity within the art world. It was a testament to the transformative power of recognition and the ripple effects that arise when hidden talents are nurtured and celebrated. Within the mansion, preparations were underway to host the foundation's inaugural event. The staff, now united by a common purpose, worked with renewed enthusiasm, their roles imbued with meaning beyond routine tasks. The estate, once a symbol of isolation and hierarchy, had become a beacon of hope and possibility. Mariah's success story resonated deeply with the household and beyond, inspiring others to pursue their passions and challenge societal constraints. Her journey from maid to celebrated artist embodied the triumph of resilience and the importance of opportunity. It was a narrative that redefined notions of talent and worth, emphasizing the human spirit's capacity to transcend circumstance. Richard and Mariah's partnership symbolized a new legacy, one that celebrated diversity, creativity, and the power of connection. Their collaboration was a beacon of change, illuminating pathways for those marginalized by society and demonstrating that true wealth lies not in possessions, but in the enrichment of lives through shared dreams. As the foundation took shape and Mariah's career soared, both she and Richard found themselves transformed. The mansion's walls, once barriers, now echoed with laughter, creativity, and the vibrant energy of possibility. Their story was no longer about loneliness or hidden talents, but about empowerment, friendship, and the enduring impact of breaking down walls, both literal and figurative. Together, they envisioned a future where art and compassion would continue to intersect, where opportunity would be accessible to all, and where the richness of human connection would redefine the meaning of success. The journey that began with two isolated souls had blossomed into a movement, a testament to the extraordinary outcomes born of courage, recognition, and the refusal to be confined by circumstance. The winds of change that had begun to sweep through the Langston estate now stirred under darker skies. Just as Mariah's star rose and the mansion's halls echoed with renewed hope and creativity, a shadow emerged, one born of envy, fear, and the fierce desire to maintain the status quo. Evelyn, the socialite whose disdain had first surfaced at the private exhibition, had not forgotten the threat Mariah posed to the carefully constructed social order. Evelyn's subtle maneuvers shifted into deliberate action. Behind the polished smiles and genteel gatherings, she wove a web of whispers and insinuations aimed at undermining Mariah's newfound success and Richard's reputation as her patron. She approached influential acquaintances and art critics, planting seeds of doubt about the authenticity of Mariah's talent and the motives behind Richard's support. To Evelyn, Mariah was an interloper, a threat to the exclusivity she so fiercely guarded. The mansion, once a sanctuary of burgeoning dreams, became a battleground of unseen conflicts. Staff members caught between loyalty and fear found themselves drawn into the undercurrents of tension. Whispers of gossip filtered through the corridors, and the warmth that had begun to thaw long-standing divisions cooled under the weight of suspicion. Mariah, sensing the shift, grappled with a mix of emotions, disillusionment, frustration, and the quiet determination that had carried her this far. The attacks on her character and artistry were painful, but they also crystallized her resolve. She refused to be defined by others' prejudices or to let fear silence her voice. Her art was her truth, and she would stand firm in its defense. Richard, too, faced the challenge of protecting not only Mariah but the vision they had cultivated together. The attacks threatened to unravel the progress they had made, testing his courage and commitment. Yet, rather than retreat, he doubled down on his support, confronting the whispers and rumors with unwavering conviction. Together, Richard and Mariah crafted a response that was both strategic and heartfelt. Public statements affirmed Mariah's talent and authenticity, while Richard leveraged his connections to secure endorsements from respected figures in the art community. They arranged private viewings and interviews that showcased the depth and sincerity of Mariah's work, countering the skepticism with undeniable proof. Within the mansion, the staff rallied around Mariah, their loyalty deepened by witnessing her strength in the face of adversity. The fractures caused by Evelyn's influence began to mend as the household united in support of the artist who had become not just a colleague, but an inspiration. This collective resilience reinforced the foundation of community that Richard and Mariah had worked so hard to build. Evelyn's attempts to sabotage Mariah's reputation, while disruptive, ultimately backfired. The public saw through the veiled hostility, recognizing the courage it took for Mariah to rise above the challenges. Her story resonated more powerfully, transforming adversity into a narrative of perseverance and integrity. The ordeal also brought Richard and Mariah closer, their partnership fortified by the trials they faced together. Late-night conversations turned to strategies for navigating the complexities of social politics and public perception. Their trust in one another deepened, anchoring them amid the swirling uncertainties. Amid the tension, Mariah found solace in her art, channeling her experiences into powerful new works that spoke of resilience, identity, and defiance. These pieces, raw and evocative, resonated deeply with audiences, further solidifying her place in the art world. Her creativity became both shield and sword, a means of expression and a statement of strength. Richard's transformation continued as well. The battles they faced challenged him to reevaluate not only his role as a patron, but his responsibilities as an ally and advocate. He embraced the complexities of this new path, learning to wield his influence with greater empathy and purpose. His support for Mariah became a beacon of integrity in a world often clouded by prejudice. The mansion, once a setting of rigid hierarchy, now stood as a testament to resilience and change. The staff's loyalty and the shared experiences forged a community bound by more than duty, by respect, courage, and a collective vision for a more inclusive future. The fractures caused by opposition were healing, replaced by a strengthened commitment to support and uplift one another. As news of the conflict and Mariah's response spread, invitations to speak at panels and participate in advocacy initiatives arrived. Mariah embraced these opportunities, using her platform to inspire others facing similar barriers. Her voice grew stronger, a chorus that challenged norms and encouraged empowerment. Richard stood beside her, not just as patron but as partner in this evolving mission. Together, they envisioned expanding their foundation's reach, creating programs that addressed not only artistic development but also social justice and community building. Their work transcended the boundaries of art, touching lives in profound and lasting ways. The conflict with Evelyn, though challenging, became a catalyst for growth and solidarity. It exposed the persistent obstacles faced by those daring to break molds, but it also highlighted the power of unity and conviction in overcoming adversity. Mariah and Richard's alliance emerged not weakened but emboldened, a testament to the strength found in facing opposition with grace and determination. In the quiet moments after the storm, as the mansion settled into a renewed rhythm, both understood that the journey was far from over. Challenges remained, and the path ahead would demand resilience and courage. But armed with the lessons of the past and the strength of their partnership, they were ready to continue transforming barriers into bridges. Their story, the tale of a hidden artist and a lonely millionaire, had evolved into a narrative of defiance, loyalty, and the relentless pursuit of justice. It was a story that inspired not only those within the mansion's walls, but countless others who dared to dream beyond the limits imposed upon them. Together, Richard and Mariah stood poised to face whatever lay ahead, united by a shared vision and an unshakable bond. The battles fought and won were but chapters in a larger journey, one that promised to reshape lives, communities, and the very fabric of society itself. The mansion, once a silent fortress of isolation and rigid social divides, now thrummed with a new energy, a celebration of life, creativity, and the healing power of connection. Richard Langston and Mariah had transformed not only their own lives, but the very fabric of the estate, turning it into a sanctuary where barriers fell and true community blossomed. At the heart of this transformation was the foundation they had established together, a beacon dedicated to discovering and nurturing hidden talents from marginalized communities. The foundation became a living testament to their shared journey, a promise that no gift, no matter how deeply buried, would remain unseen or unheard. Workshops, exhibitions, and mentorship programs flourished, drawing artists from all walks of life who found in the Langston estate a refuge and a launchpad for their dreams. Richard, once a lonely millionaire lost in the shadows of his wealth, had blossomed into a man of purpose and empathy. His role as patron transcended mere financial support. He became a passionate advocate for equality and inclusion, using his influence to challenge the very structures that had once confined them both. The mansion echoed with laughter and music, the halls filled not with silence, but with the vibrant pulse of shared stories and creative expression. Mariah, whose journey from maid to celebrated artist had inspired so many, stood as a shining example of resilience and courage. Her art, once hidden in the quiet corners of the estate, now adorned galleries and public spaces, speaking to the universal themes of hope, identity, and transformation. More than an artist, she had become a mentor and leader, guiding others to find their voices and embrace their potential. The staff, once bound by strict hierarchies and unspoken distance, had become a family united by experience and vision. Their loyalty and dedication to one another transcended roles, fostering an environment where every individual's contribution was valued and celebrated. The lines between servant and master blurred into irrelevance, replaced by mutual respect and shared dreams. One evening, the estate hosted a grand celebration, a gathering of artists, patrons, friends, and family to honor the journey they had undertaken together. The air was alive with joy and gratitude, a tapestry woven from countless stories of struggle and triumph. Speeches were made, music played, and paintings unveiled, each moment a tribute to the power of courage and compassion. Richard and Mariah stood side by side, their hands clasped in quiet solidarity. They shared a glance that spoke volumes, a recognition of the miles traveled, the battles fought, and the miracles achieved. Their partnership, forged in the crucible of loneliness and hidden talents, had blossomed into a legacy of hope and transformation. As the night deepened, they moved through the crowd, greeting friends and artists whose lives had been touched by their work. Stories flowed freely, of breakthroughs, of healed wounds, of futures reclaimed. The mansion, once a symbol of division, had become a beacon of unity and possibility. Amid the celebration, Mariah's grandmother arrived, her presence a poignant reminder of the roots from which this extraordinary journey had grown. She embraced Mariah warmly, her eyes shining with pride and wisdom. The old healer's teachings, once whispered in quiet moments, had found new life in the vibrant energy of the estate. Richard, too, found himself humbled by the transformation. He realized that true wealth was not measured in possessions or power, but in the connections forged and the lives uplifted. The foundation was more than a project. It was a living testament to the strength of the human spirit and the miracles that arise when ordinary people refuse to give up. As the celebration continued, Mariah unveiled a new painting, a luminous depiction of the mansion bathed in light, its walls dissolving into a tapestry of faces and colors that represented the community it had become. The crowd was moved to tears, witnessing the embodiment of a dream realized. The story of Richard and Mariah was no longer just their own. It had become a shared narrative of healing and hope, a legacy that would inspire generations to come. Their journey emphasized that true richness lies not in wealth or status, but in love, courage, and the bonds formed through shared struggles. In the quiet moments after the festivities, Richard and Mariah stood on the veranda, gazing at the stars that blanketed the night sky. The journey ahead was still unwritten, filled with promise and challenge alike. Yet, They faced it with hearts full of gratitude and a steadfast belief in the miracles born of compassion and determination. Their story was a testament to the extraordinary power of human connection, the kind that breaks through barriers, transforms lives, and creates legacies far greater than any fortune. Miracles happen when ordinary people dare to hope, to love, and to fight for a better tomorrow. And in the warm glow of that summer night, beneath the endless sky, the mansion stood not as a monument to isolation, but as a home filled with laughter, love, and the enduring spirit of healing and hope. If you love the story, like the video and subscribe.